Hi, welcome to Need for Speed. If you have an unquenchable thirst for speed, you've come to the right place. If you're trying to get into dirt bikes, I'll teach you the differences between dirt bikes and motorcycles, how to ride a dirt bike, and how to do proper safety.
So let's look at the differences now between an actual motorcycle and a dirt bike. While they're both on two wheels and they both run on an engine, there's very significant differences in how you feel and ride them. So let's start off with the most obvious one, which is definitely the wheels. So dirt bikes usually have tacks like these to hold on to the dirt and all that, because they're meant to be off-road and they're meant to be on all terrain. So you can go through sand, dirt, rocks, water, all sort of things with the dirt bike wheels. While normal motorcycles usually have a lot flatter wheels like these, and they're just meant to be on the road. They're prone to hydroplaning, which is when you're kind of gliding on water if you're going too fast, while dirt bike wheels always avoid that. Something also very noticeable is the actual frame and the build of the bike. This motorcycle, for example, is a lot wider than a dirt bike, and is also, as you can see, a lower center of gravity. All this has to do with comfort and actual the riding experience. So this is more built, well, this one specifically is also meant for racing, but the seat itself, for example, is a lot wider. It's also way far in the back, while a normal dirt bike, it should be in the front, and the sitting position on this bike is back here like this, while in a dirt bike you try being up here fairly close to the handlebars. So that's the differences between what you can actually see, but there's also a lot of differences in what you can't see.
Here's one of those examples, which is suspension, which is in both the front and the middle of the bike. According to an article by the LCC Association, the suspension of a dirt bike is usually around 12 inches or more, while the suspension of a motorcycle is usually only a few inches, meaning that dirt bikes allow you to go over rocks and other obstacles that motorcycles couldn't. Now let's move on over to engines, which is another thing that you can't really see, but this one goes pretty in depth. Usually motorcycles are around 500cc and more, while dirt bikes usually stay below 350. 350 is usually the staple for dirt bikes because any heavier than that, or any larger than that, means it's heavier. According to General Reliance, the bigger the cc capacity, which is cubic centimeters of volume inside the engine, would make the engine be stronger with more torque and much heavier. So while that might seem good for dirt bikes, having that extra speed and the extra power is actually harmful because the extra weight makes it so it's so much harder to control. That's why usually they stay below 350cc. Within that realm though, there is the 350cc, which is this dirt bike, and then there's also less, around 125cc. The difference is mainly who is riding the dirt bike. If you're somebody lighter or around like 145 pounds, you really don't need 350cc's, or else that's just way too much. You don't need that extra power unless you're going super professional. But my dad, for example, who's a lot heavier than me, needs the extra power because it's carrying more weight. So it's really just a ratio between weight and power when you're trying to find an engine that's good for you. So here's just a size chart of the weight to engine cc size that I got from Dirt Bike Planet. Something important to look at when you're looking at the power to weight ratio is also the weight of the bikes. So normally dirt bikes stay between 200 to 300 pounds if they're a full size, while normal motorcycles usually tend to be around 400 to 500 pounds. This means that the power needed by the engines is also a lot less. That's why you normally see normal motorcycles going to 500 plus cc's, and the maximums being around 1,200 cc. So along with the extra weight that they're pushing, they need the extra power. While these dirt bikes don't really need that since they're a lot lighter and they're meant for maneuverability. So now that you figured out what type of bike you might need, you might want to know how to actually drive it. So to start off, let's look at a few essential parts to the bike. on the left side you have the clutch, which will disengage the gear, and we have the brake on the right side, as well as the accelerator. In the middle, you can usually either find a key or not. If there's a key, that's how you turn it on. If not, you usually have another button. All depends on the bike. Then down here, we have the rear brake, and that's something you activate with your foot. So let's go on the steps on actually how to drive it. So the first thing you want to do is turn it on, whichever way that is. And when you turn it on, you want to make sure it's in neutral gear. Neutral gear is kind of hard to find, and it's usually between the first and second gear. Once you find neutral gear, what you have to do is then get on, and you want to start the engine. I'm going to turn it off for now because or else you can't really hear my voice. But once you have the engine started, you want to make sure that you start holding the clutch. Once you hold the clutch, you can then move down a gear, and you're going to be in first gear. Once you're in first gear, you want to start slowly releasing the clutch, and you're going to start noticing that you're going to move forward. While you move forward, you want to make sure you accelerate so you don't stall. Once you start going, and you want to slow down and brake, make sure that when you're braking, you want to hold the clutch as well. You want to progressively hold it so that the engine doesn't get stalled when you're going at a really low speed. Once you come to a full stop, you want to find the neutral gear again. And when you find the neutral gear, you then want to turn off the bike and put the foot peg down. So those are the very basics on how to start, drive, forward, and stop. When you dirt bike, safety is super important and should not be taken lightly. Obviously, as in every other sport, the helmet is the most important thing. According to death and injury due to all-terrain vehicles, a disturbing trend, 60% of deaths are caused by accidents with drivers who aren't wearing a helmet. Something you might not know, though, is that according to Motocross Morbidity, a study for the Journal of Orthopedics Pediatrics, 65% of bone fractures are linked to injuries below the waist. This isn't to say that you don't need upper body protection, though. You should always have something to protect your chest and your back, as sometimes you can become paralyzed. Also, make sure that when you drive, you always are looking and aware you have blind spots around corners and the texture of the road. I hope today you learned the differences between motorcycles and dirt bikes, how to start, drive, and stop, and the basic necessities for safety. Thank you for watching, and I hope I can see you in any of these cool trails.